Fallout 76 has beaten its all-time concurrent player count again on Steam. On Steam, the game has seen its highest player count ever, with 64,000 players playing the game concurrently on Saturday. This smashes the previous record, which was set only last week at just under 40K. Yeah, I was just about to say, it's worth noting that when the game was first released on PC, it was distributed through Bethesda's own launcher, BethesdaNet, if you remember that. And it didn't come to Steam until 2 years after release in 2020. So realistically, it probably had a higher peak count, like back in 2018 when it first dropped, when people were just curious about it. And then it you know, came to Steam afterwards when it was kind of at the bottom of its popularity. And it's been climbing the ranks a little bit higher and higher. And like, the thing is, Fallout 76 is a game that I am just not into. Like, it's just not for me, you know? It's just not for me. I have tried with Fallout 76 many times, and it just doesn't click. It just doesn't click. And it's going to be like that for some people. But there are people that genuinely enjoy it, that go in there and they just like wandering around, finding stuff, building bases. You know, they like those parts of the Fallout gameplay loop. And the other stuff, like, you know, the dynamic or environmental storytelling, those things are kind of a second tier concern. I'm glad that those players have something to play. I mean, obviously it's great. The nice thing about how diversified the current Fallout landscape is that if you like Fallout 76, you can play Fallout 76. If you want something more narrative, you can go and play Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 or New Vegas again, potentially with mods. There were the leaks, of course, of a Fallout 3 remaster that's coming relatively soon. So we'll see that. But, you know, their ultimate goal with this big gap between Fallout 4 and when we eventually get Fallout 5 was to at least have a broad enough selection that each fan could go and find something to busy themselves with, like, and that at least is something. Is it genuinely better now? Well, so like here's the deal. I've tried to go back to Fallout 76 after each major update, and they sort of, I mean, it's very different from when it launched. Very, very different. What was the name of the expansion that brought NPCs? Wastelanders. And it was 4 years ago, so it's been out for a while.
It's been a long journey. Appalachia has changed. I don't know if you've been following the rumors, but there's something in the mountains.
Also, I just want to say, in one of the previous videos, I was like, I think it was a reaction to a Maddie video or something. I was like, oh, you got to say it like Appalachia, like it's fudge pouring out of your mouth. And I got responses from people that were like, actually, Luke, it's not pronounced that way. I live in Appalachia and it's not pronounced that way. Like, bro, I was not being, like, half the stuff I say is not serious. You should know that by now. Like, probably more than half. Most of the stuff I say, nobody should listen to. But people are like, well, actually, Luke?
People from outside are coming in, and they're coming to stay.
You're from one of the local vaults, right? All of my people are at risk.
I'm willing to pay good money if you put an end to this for me.
We ain't gonna let anyone stand in our way.
I need you, all of you, to do your part.
So they kind of pulled a 180 on one of the core premises of Fallout 76. And the core idea, which I will actually sort of defend Bethesda here, I think it was a cool experiment, or as one of my toddler nephews say, it was a cool asparagus. To try something a little bit different. And the idea was simply, Fallout is a game in which there are other non-player characters out in the world, but they're few and far between. And they each are, at least they should be, like viciously self-interested. And who are the most self-interested people on the planet? Usually gamers in a video game. that are trying to figure out what's best for them, even if it means screwing over NPCs elsewhere, right? So the idea for Fallout 76 was not just an MMO that you could monetize out the ass, but also maybe we create a Fallout game, but the NPCs, who are all individually self-interested, are other players. So the idea at the beginning of Fallout 76 was anytime you came across another human being, another person in the wastes, it would be another player. And that's an interesting concept. I'm not mad about it, you know? I'm not mad about it. But it didn't end up really working, because on the one hand, they struggled balancing it against griefers and stuff, because you'd have people sitting outside the vaults waiting for newbies to come out with their level 1 characters, and then they just get jumped. So they're like, okay, well, we have to create a bubble where they can't be attacked, or maybe they have to turn on PvP or something. And so they just started having to put in all these like restrictions on stuff. And then they got to a point where it was like, okay, well, we want more players in the servers so you can interact with each other, but we don't want so many that it just feels like WoW, because that doesn't fit with the vibe and lore of the game. So what are we going to do? And it just never really clicked together that well. And players played Fallout 76 and it just didn't end up really working. You know, it showed how I think a post-apocalyptic game with no other people is really hard to do, because it's difficult to motivate players to save, work to save a world that's not worth saving. And if there's no other people or NPCs in the world that motivate you or that you can build relationships with, you're just never really going to get that motivation there. And so it just felt really hollow as a result. And so it was a cool experiment, but it just didn't really work well. So with Wastelanders, their idea was to basically come back, do a little Control-Z, and add in NPCs into Fallout 76, and to add in a more traditional Fallout way of playing with NPCs, raiders, with quest lines related to people and stuff. It's fine. I mean, you can already kind of see it with the quality of like facial animations and the dialogue and stuff. It's basically like sub Fallout 4 but above Fallout 3 levels, and it's fine, but it's just not particularly good. I've tried to do it. I'm like, anytime I play a quest in Fallout 76, I'm like, I'd rather just go play one in Fallout 3 New Vegas or Fallout 4. Like it's just better. But that's not why you're playing Fallout 76. You're playing Fallout 76 so you can do this stuff, even though it might be a little bit worse than in those single player games, but you're doing it with friends, and that's what makes it work. That's what makes it click. If Obsidian doesn't do a Fallout spinoff because they're doing Avowed and Outer Worlds 2, who do you think should do it? Because getting a Fallout 5 in 2035 is crazy long. Microsoft is losing money. It's a very good question. As for who else would do it, I don't know if they'd give like another studio the rights to do just a spin-off Fallout game. I think they'd give another studio the option to do a remaster or maybe remake it, but I don't think they'd give another studio the option to just make a spin-off. Obsidian, for one, I don't think it would be a 10 out of 10, to be clear. And I'm not even sure if I would say that New Vegas is a 10 out of 10. It's still, to this day, is hella broken. It's fair why it's broken, because it was made in 18 months and it was like thrown together frantically, so it makes sense why it's the way that it is, but it still is broken. Like, it doesn't matter. It might have been rushed, but that doesn't change the quality, you know. As for everything else, like, they have a ton of studios, they have many options. I'm not sure who else would make the most sense, but I don't know. We'll think about it. I just think in terms of like memeability and the potential for the hype to be generated to get Game Pass subscriptions and stuff, I think an Obsidian Fallout game just clicks, you know. In Exile's working on something though, right? Are they doing Clockwork Revolution? Is that what they're doing? Or am I thinking of another one? I think they're doing Clockwork, or it's something similar to that. Yeah, they are. So maybe after that, I mean, Clockwork Revolution looks super cool. It's funny how the NPCs in this game are kind of looking the same as Starfield. And it's way worse in Fallout 76, which for one, I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's at this point a game that's 6 years old, so you'd expect it to be a little bit worse. But it's a lot worse when you start playing it. All of this to say, Fallout 76 has actually surpassed their Steam concurrent player count record. And you can see, I mean, just a huge spike in April, just a massive spike. And if we go like the last week, you can see as people started finishing the show and trying it, they've started playing more and more. I would guess a lot of this is like friends inviting other friends in. Hey, let's play some Fallout 76. Let's try it. I don't expect these numbers to really stay because a lot of this will wear off over time. Like the difficulty with live service, there's many difficulties, but one of the big difficulties with live service is that if you are based around party play, if one member of your party peels off and starts playing something else, the whole party tends to fall apart. And I've experienced that myself, whether you're playing something like Warzone back during COVID, or if you're playing like a Valorant or something like that, you get one party member that bails or cancels on you and everybody else kind of peels off and gets distracted and does other stuff. So I would guess this number starts to dip over the next few weeks, but I think that they still have found certainly a lot of success. A lot of people are very, very interested in it and are giving it a shot. And I'm sure that Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4 are also seeing similar spikes. We've seen that in the Xbox app. If I can pull that up, I could even show you. Fallout 76, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, Fallout 1. Fallout 2 does not have the flame, and neither does Fallout Tactics, but all the others are hot right now. They hot right now. Clearly, I mean, the show's done a lot to gin up some hype. A lot of people are very interested in Fallout, and they're looking for fixes. It makes you realize, like, if they had another game launching around this time, easy money. Easy money. The other video that went kind of viral was this clip when Todd asked one of the IGN guys a question. Specifically asked them, did they really rate the show a 9?
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah.
They really give it a 9?
Yes. Yeah, that's what he told me. I was like,
they're like, this is like up there, best video game adaptations. Like, it's so exciting.
Awesome.
I'm so excited.
Thank you.
we're very excited. Thank you, Todd. Yeah.
And it was kind of a wholesome moment because you're like, aw, Todd, you know, I think he needed a win for sure. Because, I mean, I've called Todd many things, I think, and I would say this to his face. I think he intentionally or not has employed unethical practices to sell games in the past. His kind of wanton disregard for verifiable factuality in his salesmanship has caused a lot of people to get overly hyped for games, spend money that they probably shouldn't have spent on a game that wasn't ready. And I have a problem with that. But he still is an amazingly talented game designer. There's no denying that. He's one of the most prolific and most influential game designers, certainly, of the last 20 years. But put yourself in his shoes. He goes from the high of Skyrim, being called like one of the greatest minds in video game design ever, being called a genius, being oh, is the candle lit? Thank you for the 100 bits. No, not yet. He's been, you know, he goes from that at the very, very peak. Everybody's playing your game. It's mentioned in TV shows. It's mentioned by everybody. Every celebrity's talking about it. Everybody cannot get enough of this. And then, praise be to Todd. And then you have a series of oopsies. Fallout 4 comes out and it's just not as much of an RPG as people were hoping for. It's not very polished or refined. It's kind of broken at launch. And the story has a lot of kind of cringy stuff. Yes, Todd be with you. And also with you. Thank you. Thank you, Whitest Rabbit. So there's a lot of, like, I think mixed reactions, or more mixed reactions than they were probably expecting for Fallout 4, but still works relatively well. And then Fallout 76 comes out, and every ounce of goodwill you had spent 25 years building is gone in the span of about a day, where the game is not just broken, the game is like criminally broken. And everybody's blaming you because you sold it to them. And, you know, I still think that there was a lot of external pressure. I still think it was mostly Robert Altman and whatever, I think it's Robert Trump. It's actually Trump's brother. He was one of the head honchos on the board of directors at ZeniMax before they sold to Xbox. Fun little factoid for you. But I think a lot of the executives were putting pressure on BGS to put out a live service game to make some quick cash. And I don't think it was wholly Todd just being like, okay, yes, we'll put this out and make tons of money. I think there were other things going on. But that being said, it still lands at his feet because he's the one that sold it to his fan base and to his customers. And it was a broken pile of garbage. And they've worked on it. It's gotten better, certainly. People are enjoying it now, but they still blame him. And then there's the whole meme with sweet little lies and you can't trust anything Todd says. And then you're like, I'm going to redeem myself with this big magnum opus game for us, Starfield. It's going to be the most ambitious, crazy game. This is what's going to put us back on the map. People are going to be blown away at how crazy cool this is. And then the game comes out and it does okay, which is kind of where Starfield's at. It's like 7.5, 8 out of 10 range. It's pretty good. Or even like it's between fine and pretty good, at least in spots. But it certainly was not the game that people thought they were sold, which is a different thing. There were a lot of fanboys that thought they were getting basically like what Star Citizen has been promising. And when they didn't get that, they were woefully disappointed. And it's because they had their expectations out of whack. And a lot of that still lands back on the marketing team and also the guy that sold it to you. So like Todd, I think just has had blow after blow after blow of just, can't catch a break. I would argue it's mostly by his own actions and it lands on him. And that's what happens when you run a company. Like the buck stops with you, you know?
Now a member. I read that game adaptations into shows and movies is gonna be the next big thing since superhero stuff isn't as successful anymore. What do you think?
I actually totally agree. I think that is a very valid observation, where if superhero stuff isn't adapting that well and people are kind of burnt out on it, you'll start to see a lot of people, a lot of studios paying for video game licenses. But I don't think that there's that many that work that well. Like all the most cinematic ones, we've already had announcements or had releases. Like they're doing the Ghost of Tsushima thing, they're doing Fallout, they might do Elder Scrolls eventually, but even that isn't a very cinematic thing. And you know, they've done of course The Last of Us, they've done Uncharted, they've done Tomb Raider. Like yeah, somebody should make a Last of Us show. Somebody should do that. Borderlands, yeah, Borderlands. I just don't think there's that. Yeah, Red Dead could work, but even Red Dead, I don't know how you make a show out of it without it just being like kind of just a standard cowboy show.
No Man's
you know?
Sky is now a member.
Oh, Halo.
Rest for the Wicked Vid at 1600 hours. Do you mean in the game?
1600
because
hours.
We just see your t-shirt. And Ubisoft stock in trouble ATM? For managed expectations.
No, wait, 16. Do you mean in the game? Because we just see your t-shirt. He took my thing.